Mr. Farzin Toussi.
Yes.
How are you doing?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. Well, thank you for jumping on this podcast. I really appreciate you taking the time to talk about the documentary that you produced, which, by the way, was phenomenal and amazing and inspirational. So I can't even describe it with enough adjectives. But thank you for jumping on.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, and
my pleasure. Thank you.
Talking to us a little bit about it. So, from what I understand, this is your first non-traditional kind of passion project, and it has to do with plant medicine. Is that accurate?
That is accurate. I've been doing a lot of unscripted, or if you would, reality television for the past 15 years as a producer. And this is my first foray into directing a documentary.
So it's your directorial debut?
It is, yes.
Okay, and tell us about what is the medicine and why did you pick this topic?
Well, the medicine is a feature documentary about Yahe, the Colombia version of ayahuasca, and a particular shaman named Taita Juanito, who comes from the Inga Siona heritage in Colombia. He's a 35-year-old shaman, one of the younger shamans to come out of the traditional tribes down in Colombia. How it all happened is that my wife and I tried ayahuasca at Rhythmia at different times. She tried it with Taita 1 and decided she thought it would be a good idea to do a documentary. And Taita Juanito went back to Colombia, and he had a ceremony with his grandfather, who was at the time 108, 109 years old. They asked the medicine whether we should be doing this documentary, and the medicine came back and sent them a message saying, yes, it's okay to proceed. So it took them 6 months to come back and say, okay, well, let's do the documentary.
Okay.
By this time, yeah, it was a little crazy. By this time, it's December 2016. I go down to Rhythmia to do medicine with Taita Juanito for the first time. And I have to tell you, up to this point, I had done multiple ceremonies with regular facilitators or whatnot. And I was like, this is amazing. It had already changed my life. But once I went and did it with Taita Juanito, it was a whole different level of experience.
Well, you have shared a lot of information that I think we need to probably unpack. I am sure there's a lot of people that are Aya experienced, but I imagine there are those that still haven't either heard or experienced ayahuasca. Can you tell us what it is to begin?
Ayahuasca is a brew of a vine and a leaf that is put together as a plant medicine that is given in a ceremonial setting within all the different tribes within the Amazon region. It's over 4,000 years old, and it's hallucinogenic, and it has a lot of other spiritual properties as well. And how it works is it releases DMT into your bloodstream, and that causes all these visions. And depending on the kind of ayahuasca you're drinking, you have less or more visions. The Yahe is less a visionary and more purgative than, let's say, the Peruvian ayahuasca.
Okay. So, what is DMT?
DMT is a naturally found substance in our bodies, and almost all animals and plants have. A lot of plants have them, and it's basically in this case it is something that gets it causes the visionary effect of this medicine.
Okay. Is this the same product that people say it's excreted by your pineal gland when you are born and right before you die? Is this the same compound?
Yes, okay. It is.
Perfect. Now, there's obviously smokable versions of DMT distillate. How is this different from smoking DMT, for example?
Well, I smoking DMT it's much quicker.
Mm-hmm.
It's directly goes into your brain.
Mm-hmm.
And again, I haven't experimented with smoking it, so I'm only, these are assumptions I'm making.
Mm-hmm.
But from what I understand, it lasts 15 to 20 minutes. Whereas this is something that can last hours, potentially between 1 and 8 hours.
Okay. Now, from what I understand, ayahuasca is a combination of 2 different plants. Is that correct?
That is correct. A vine and a leaf.
And what I've heard is that the DMT portion is not what's considered to be the mother. The mother is considered to be the portion that actually is the carrier for the MAOI inhibitor. Is that correct?
Correct. That is correct.
All right. So tell us why. I mean, that sounds amazing and fascinating, but DMT is a psychedelic and the MAO inhibitor is just a blocker. So why would that be the case?
Our bodies require the MAO inhibitor in order to digest it.
Mm-hmm.
And the interesting thing for me is that, how did these guys figure out that you need to combine these 2 different plants for this effect?
Right.
4,000 years ago, more than 4,000 years ago, because there were no labs then.
Right.
And that to me is one of the more interesting aspects of this plant medicine, and that's why I'm like, there's almost something divine to this compared to, in my opinion, other plant medicines like mushroom or even San Pedro.
Really? So you feel like
Yes.
this is really entirely different from the other entheogens that people might be using?
I just think that the divine component to this is it's a lot more divine. You're actually, you can use the others in a ceremonial setting, but that, to me, this is a direct sort of passageway to connecting with some other world.
What is the vine called?
The vine, it's a good question. Banisteropis capi.
Okay. I think, is that, at least in Peruvian, I think they call it chacruna, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
Okay. All right. So, all right. I think those were a lot of like the basic questions. So the topic is at least introduced. Mm-hmm. Now that we talked about what the product is, what ayahuasca is, and what the plants are involved, okay, we know kind of on a very basic level how these things work. How come you were interested in exploring this plant? I hear that there's some side effects that are not pleasant, and I hear that it's in general a pretty, labor-intensive process.
Yeah, what happened is my wife was struggling with the death of her father, and she was brought down to Costa Rica or recommended to go to Costa Rica to Rhythmia to do an ayahuasca ceremony without knowing much about what ayahuasca is or anything. So she went in cold, and she went in, and she really didn't know what she was doing there. All she knew was this could help her deal with grief. And when she got down there, she felt a little weird. She goes, "This is odd. The whole setting is a little odd. It's a little cultish. People are wearing white. It's weird." But, when she actually saw Taita Juanito and went through the experience, she was a changed person. And oddly enough, I could feel the difference before she came back. I mean, for example, she said, "Hey, listen, I'm going down to Costa Rica. Do you want to go? There's this healthy resort. There's no alcohol, healthy food." I'm like, "No, thank you. You go and have fun." Right?
It sounds amazing, but no thanks.
Yeah. So she went. She got transformed. She actually connected with her father doing the ceremony, and was put at ease. interesting enough, she connected with my dad, who had passed away in 1991, and my dad's like, "Listen, I'm very proud of Farzin," and when my wife told me that, I'm like, "Wait a minute here. I produce shitty reality television. There's no way my dad, the engineer, could be proud of me. I need to go talk to him myself." So, cut to 2 or 3 years later, and I still haven't really connected with him, but I've derived a lot of other sort of benefits along the way.
Wait a minute. So you're saying that you still haven't connected with your dad, and
I have not.
You got called in to do ayahuasca because that was the number one question you had.
Yeah, I lost when I was 21 years old. I just felt that I need to connect with him, and I've been sort of winging it since then without much fatherly mentorship and blah blah blah. And I needed to just connect. And when he said that, hey, I'm proud of him, I just didn't, in my mind, I was like, I just can't be. I got to go talk to him myself, and I have yet to have that conversation.
Do you feel that he was instrumental in, I guess, attracting you to this possibility and exploring this whole concept?
I hadn't thought about that. I think that the idea of me seeing the transformation with my wife is what let me down there, first and foremost. And then after the first week of being at Rhythmia, I stopped drinking hard alcohol. I had more empathy. I'd been fundamentally changed, even though I didn't have really, what you would call like hard experiences or crazy events happen during their ceremonies. But I was still fundamentally changed when I left Rhythmia.
Do you feel that after you left the ceremony, your first ceremony, do you feel that you felt generally happy or introspective or sad? Like, what was the feeling immediately after doing the ceremony?
Immediately after, there's this feeling of connectedness and happiness. I think a lot of times it can very well be you're happy because you survived the night.
That's true. Yes, absolutely.
But there is this happiness that this sort of feeling of community and being connected to humanity. That takes a hold of you after doing a ceremony.
Okay.
I mean, you see the shift in people. You might go in and go into a ceremony and you're like, oh my God, these people are a little bit like, a little aggro or a little this or a little that. And then by the morning, they come out of it and they're totally transformed and chill and just have a different outlook on life. I mean, it's kind of crazy stuff happens through these ceremonies.
Do you feel that the plant is an actual entity that is communicating something?
It's a good question. I think the plant is the medium with which the spirit, whatever we want to call this spirit, Mother Ayahuasca or whatever we want to call it, is using to communicate with us.
So you feel like
if we allow her to communicate with us.
So you essentially feel that it's an entity that is conscious and is communicating.
Yes. Okay. Yes.
Wow. That seems to be a very, I guess, commonly held belief with people that have enjoyed or explored ayahuasca. It seems to be pretty much a running theme.
Well, I mean, I didn't believe in, God before all this. I was very black and white, right? I didn't believe in this sort of the spirit world, but now the things that I've experienced, the things I've seen, I just have no doubt that there is something beyond the physical realm that we're in right now.
Right. How do you think the medicine has changed you?
It's definitely, before taking the medicine, I mean, aside from the quitting alcohol or hard alcohol, which I think is a big deal, I think I used alcohol as a way to cope with dealing with my industry and the people who are in it, and the egos in it, and the nonsense that we go through in the entertainment industry. But aside from that, I feel like I have more empathy. I'm a lot calmer. I'm not combative. I handle stress better. I have a more, I think my approach to life is a little bit different than it was before. I don't fear death, for example, anymore. There's just a lot more sort of comfort in the way I look at life.
Mm-hmm.
I think I'm less materialistic. I mean, there's a lot of amazing things that come out of it.
Mm-hmm. Well,
for me personally.
Well, thank you for sharing such personal things, and it is really telling to speak with you and also have seen the movie to see that a lot of that insight has come through, maybe not in such a personal level, but it has come through. It seems like other people on the story that you were able to showcase. So tell us, how did you meet Taita, and why did you have this instant connection, it seems like, with him?
Well, Taita, as I explained before, my wife met him first and had a ceremony and approached him and asked him to do a documentary. I was a skeptic.
Mm-hmm.
There are so many ayahuasca documentaries out there that I was like, well, what are we going to do, right? There's so many already out there. Then I met him for the first time, and I have to tell you, it was a ceremony with 80 people at Rhythmia, and there was a ton of energy. It was really one of the toughest nights of my life. Mm-hmm. And even with how hardcore the first and second times that I did medicine with Taita were, I felt completely taken care of. And he held that space, even with 70 or 80 people, really well. Mm-hmm. And since then, look, I've known him for 2 years, and having done the documentary with him, I've grown to really appreciate who he is, and I think he is so pure that he's a different level of, in my opinion, he's a different level of a shaman, or a different level of somebody administering this medicine. And just to give you an example of how profound my experiences with him have been, the last time I did medicine, one of the last times I did medicine with him, he literally woke me up and got me out of bed and said that, he had received a message from the spirit world, and that he had the solution for me, something I've been waiting for 2 years, and that I needed to drink another cup of medicine. And by God, he did. Mm-hmm. And he had literally, I mean, and I had at that point lost a little bit of faith in the medicine, mm-hmm. but he literally received a message, woke me up, administered the medicine, and some craziness ensued, and I felt much better after that.
Well, you know what I'm gonna say. I'm gonna say you can't leave us hanging. You're gonna have to tell us the story.
Okay. It's what they call a spiritual death. Okay. So what happens is that you get this overwhelming feeling of dying, mm-hmm. and so what happens is, like, let me just there's a lot of purging or vomiting during ceremony. He gave me the cup. I went back 5-10 minutes later. I purging violently and purging and purging and purging. It's like, sometimes you just don't know where the heck all this stuff is coming from, but it is. So, and then I just felt that I felt completely disconnected from as if my soul had left my body, completely blind. I could only hear stuff, and I felt like I was dying. And it only ended when I decided to let go and die.
Wow.
And I did. And I remember saying, I said some crazy stuff apparently, during that whole process. But I remember just saying, I just don't care anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And when I said that, I kept repeating that, because at that point I was resigned to dying, and I started coming out of it, and I felt I started feeling better. And presumably I left all the old patterns, and that was kind of my intention. They say you're supposed to go in with an intention what you want done, and that was kind of my intention of just kind of putting aside or all the old patterns and getting into alignment with my true self, which I feel like I had been living, and especially working in the reality television, that I've been kind of not aligned with my purpose in life.
Mm-hmm.
So that all happened. This is this is a couple months ago, and I can report that since then I felt a lot better about life.
Wow. So I guess the way I envision it, it could be either a somber experience or a very bright and shiny experience. It looks like for you, it was a very bright and shiny experience.
Yes. Well, while I was going through it, it wasn't, but the outcome has been tremendous.
Now, what do you say to people that might say they're not brave enough to take on such a really robust journey into their psyche?
Look, I'm not the bravest of people, and I've done it, quite a few times. I just think it just, how badly do you want to sort of, God, I hate these labels. Do you want to evolve? How badly do you want to just, and I kind of don't like saying heal, because I think, we I just don't know if we're all sick, right? But I just feel like there's always room for improvement. I think we carry a lot of stuff from our childhood, and some people like we have AnnaLynne McCord, an actress in our documentary who's dealt with sexual abuse. So that's one kind of trauma, but there's all, it seems like all kinds of traumas can happen, right? Some more extreme than others, but that doesn't mean we are trauma free. And this seems to really purge a lot of that out of your system, and we all can use that.
Right. So it looked, excuse me, sorry, go ahead.
Of course. It's just what's a little vomiting.
Yeah, okay. Well, it looks like you were attracted to two celebrities that had an entirely different experience from you. How did you find them? Why them? Tell us what went through your head.
Well, I think AnnaLynne is a friend of ours, and she was obviously given her childhood and experience with abuse and all that. We talked to her, and she had actually, she says a part of the reason that she decided to do it was because she saw me as kind of an atheist. Oops, sorry, we have a dog. Sort of an atheist transforming and believing in God was really impactful for her. Okay. And she said, I'll try it. And so I think, she's the right candidate. And look, for us, we wanted to have a couple of, people from different backgrounds that to kind of help get the word out. If people see the sort of actress who has these issues, or an NFL player who for me was interesting because of the whole CTE situation that could happen, and the the effects that ayahuasca, they say, has on your brain chemistry. That's why we wanted to try it. That's one of the reasons he was attracted to trying it. So we wanted to kind of put two different people to attract different segments of the population that could possibly benefit from this.
Right. Nice job. I think that was very well done.
No, thank you.
I feel very privileged that I got to see this screening, plus, AnnaLynne and your other, I guess, culprit. They spoke about their personal experiences, and I really felt like the movie did such a good job of highlighting their initial experience, but there was so much more to them. So I personally wanted to hear more, and I don't know, maybe at some point we can kind of introduce a continuation of that conversation, because I felt that what was presented at the documentary was very intriguing and interesting, but it felt like an opening of a door, and I felt like I wanted to explore more and learn more. So.
No, understood and agreed. I think we could definitely, we could have definitely gone deeper with their stories, but they're just so much. We wanted to pack in, culture, history, science, right. Taita. Then we got AnnaLynne and Kerry, and it just sort of. There's only so much we can do in 90 minutes.
Absolutely. Well done. Yeah. And hey, they can always come on a podcast,
Absolutely. No, we can definitely make that happen.
Okay. That's amazing. Wow. There was an interesting, I guess, group of scientists that also presented. How did you find the scientists, and did you have a personal relationship with them, or how did that come about?
No, just research, and we reached out. Okay. And the thing is, part of it was I just wanted to, like Dr. Jordi Riba is one of the, he's been studying it longer than anybody, mm-hmm. So I wanted to go to him, for example. Graham Hancock has been talking in this space for a long time. And the reason, I actually, really like Graham is because he has a banned TED Talk mm-hmm. about ayahuasca, and it's just an amazing 18-minute talk where he describes what this medicine is. And that was sort of my starting point of research for doing ayahuasca. And that's why I kind of felt, I really wanted Graham involved in this.
Absolutely. I think Graham and Dennis McKenna, I think they have really contributed to our understanding of the plant and exploring it mm-hmm. and incorporating it to our Western lives, right? Because we don't live in the Amazon. We have an entirely different life. But the fact that it has been helpful for us as well just talks about how potent it is.
Yeah, I mean, the way we're conditioned is we're conditioned to kind of essentially look down on indigenous cultures and peoples, and it's sad because they actually knew what what. I mean, they have such a better understanding of the world than we do, mm-hmm. even with all the science that we have.
Right. Life is simpler, right? You focus on the most important things because that's all you have.
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
absolutely.
Obviously, it seems like you've had a very personal experience with it. I'm sure there are people that are waiting on the sidelines and curious whether or not they should or if they can make the jump. What's your advice for them?
I mean, I think, who are we to tell people what to do, right? Mm-hmm. So this is a very personal question, personal decision that they need to ask themselves. I feel like, people really need to do their homework, but they need to be careful because there's just so much misinformation out there on the internet, it's not that makes it seem scary and makes it seem demonic or this or that. It just, if you go with a reputable shaman, if you go wherever you do it, if you go to Colombia or Brazil or Peru, you just have to be with the right person.
Right.
Then it's not as scary because you will always be taken care of.
Right. Is there a warning you would give to anyone that's curious or is going to take that journey?
Yeah, it's not fun. Yeah, it's not, you're not doing this for fun. It's not a trip. It's work, as they say. But there is a payoff. I mean, the sun will come up in the morning and you're going to feel better no matter what happens during the night.
That's true. What about, can people do it if they are on some kind of medication?
Generally, no. You have to cut it out at least two weeks prior or 30 days prior, especially antidepressants or Xanax or any of the crazy, shitty stuff that the big pharmaceutical companies push on us.
So do you recommend people to see physicians before they wean themselves off, and then be honest about their journey, basically? With
100%. And a lot of, like, for example, like if you're going down to Colombia to see Taita, they have a questionnaire. They ask you all that stuff, and you can't mess around with all that stuff. You can't lie about it and all that, because that's when it becomes dangerous.
Right. And it sounds like there's a lot of reputable shamans, but there are fly-by-day shamans as well. So it sounds like you really do need to do your research, no matter what. This is outside of the United States. There's no heavy regulation, so you have to really kind of do your research before you actually partake, correct?
Yeah, 100%. You need a recommendation. You need to talk to people. You can't just show up in Iquitos, Peru, and just just find somebody.
Right. And I have heard that happen to multiple people. So really glad that you're talking about this openly, because, again, it's one of those things you want to do as much research as possible so you are comfortable with the process.
Yeah, and look, now I've sort of made a commitment to Taita. I think I'm going to generally do medicine with Taita and some of his disciples, if you will. But before I did it a couple of times here in LA, and to be honest with you, it just wasn't, it just didn't feel right.
Right.
It felt it felt to me like people were there for a trip,
Okay.
Or it was a fad, whereas when you're going to Colombia, you're going there for healing. You're going there to work.
True. Now, you mentioned that you did the Colombian version, and there's a Colombian and a Peruvian version. What's the difference?
The Colombian version tastes like shit. I mean, it's the worst. The Peruvian, it's very thick. It's muddy. It's less visionary, so you're going to get less of the visuals, but more of a purgative. The Peruvian version is more visuals, and it's not as thick, and less vomiting and less shitting.
Peruvian sounds way better.
Yes, well, Brazilian is good too.
Yeah, it's interesting. I hear that they are growing ayahuasca in Hawaii now.
Yes, they are.
And
they
say it's more gentle. Is that true?
Yes, it's more along the lines of the Peruvian version.
Okay.
Yeah. So a lot of that's what a lot of the the people doing ceremonies here in LA, that's what they use.
The Hawaiian version.
The Hawaiian version, yeah.
But is there a tradition of ayahuasca within Hawaii?
No, I think Terrence McKenna took it there.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Have you ever interviewed with Terrence McKenna, or have you ever thought about it?
Thought about it, but we didn't.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you think there's a sequel in the works?
Um, we're working on actually pitching a TV show.
Okay.
Yeah.
That would be
So
very
we will
fascinating.
see. Yeah,
Yeah.
we will see. And I think the idea would be to take veterans with PTSD to see Taita. I think it's something that is super useful. For any kind of trauma, right? But PTSD of any kind,
Absolutely.
specifically veterans, it could be very, very beneficial.
Absolutely. Are you familiar with the MAPS organization?
I am not.
So there are a couple of different societies that are really dedicated to studying psychedelics. In fact, there's a psychedelic conference that's
Did you
coming
say
up.
MAPS?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yes, I am.
Okay,
Sorry, I
perfect.
didn't
Yeah.
catch it. Yeah, of course, yeah.
So it sounds like it would be a good collaboration for maybe that kind of an organization.
Yes.
Okay. Fabulous.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
For sure.
Well, a lot of amazing and interesting topics. Now that you have taken on this ayahuasca journey, are you curious about other ways of looking at your psyche? For example, mushrooms or San Pedro or hypnotherapy or you name it. There's so many different modalities, of course.
I mean, yeah, I've kind of done pretty much all of the above. But I have to say, still, ayahuasca is my medicine. I feel, hypnotherapy is amazing, by the way. I'm a big fan of hypnotherapy. I've tried San Pedro, and I just didn't really connect the same way I do with ayahuasca. And mushrooms, to me, I think they're a mind expander, but they're not. I'm not feeling the divine connection.
Wow. Okay.
That's just me personally.
That makes a lot of sense. Do you feel ayahuasca has a message for humanity?
Yes, stop killing the environment.
Yeah.
Stop killing the planet. I mean, it's, if you really look at it, these shamans are coming out of the jungle to help us.
Yeah.
Because before they really weren't, into taking the medicine out, but at some point that this is what I hear, is what they say, is that at some point all the elders said, we need to, maybe the way to stop all this destruction is by taking our medicine out to people.
I think that's an amazing message.
Yeah, and they do it, by the way, they do it without judgment, as peoples who were oppressed by white people. Let's just be honest, that's what it was. They were oppressed, but they're not doing it, they're not doing it with judgment. They're coming out with love, with the message of love.
Right. I think this is an amazingly profound message to maybe conclude on. It's been a fascinating conversation. Definitely, if there's any other topics you'd like to talk about, let us know. But I think it's been very eye-opening to speak with you tonight.
No, thank you so much. Really appreciate your time.
All right, perfect. Well, have a good night, and we'll speak soon.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.